Breaking news coming in this hour. The Indian government is likely to take up Jadhav issue with the US NSA MCMaster, who is visiting India, Afghanistan and Pakistan this weekend. Well, Geeta Mohan is joining us with further details on this story. Geeta, what can you tell us about India's plans to take up the Jadhav matter with the United States as well?
Well, the United States National Security Advisor McMaster is going to be in India after his visit to the AFPAC region, not the region particularly the AFPAC countries, which is Afghanistan and Pakistan. What we're given to understand is that Pakistan, in order to internationalize the issue and take it up with various countries, is preparing a dossier for the United States of America. But when the National Security Advisor comes to India, there is going to be a whole lot of discussion on what Pakistan has been up to, the kind of violations that Pakistan has indulged in, and also the kind of support that the Pakistani establishment provides to terror networks. We have the State Department official, Mark Toner himself, mentioning and admitting that Pakistan is not sincere in the fight against terrorism, and it's the reason why I was kept out of this entire mission in Afghanistan. And now the National Security Advisor would be hard for U.S. to believe that Pakistan has really caught an Indian spy in Pakistani territory, when we have enough proof to show that he was working in Iran and was kidnapped by the Pakistanis. Hence, there is going to be a to and fro that happens in all probability on Kulbhushan Jadhav, but India is going to up the ante, talking about cooperation on terrorism and how Pakistan supports these terror networks. Although sources have told NewsX that Pakistan also is preparing a dossier to present to National Security Advisor U.S. McMaster.
And all this, of course, in continuation of India's efforts to try and save Kulbhushan Jadhav from the sentence that he has so arbitrarily been given in Pakistan, Geeta, given the fact that there is a certain limited time period now for us to bolster these efforts.
Well, that's right. A 60-day deadline in which he will get an opportunity to go ahead and appeal to the army chief, and if that doesn't work, to the president. But we all know how that is going to work, and who is the president going to, at whose behest he is going to go ahead with the sentencing. And if that really happens, it would be a new low for Indo-Pak ties. India has already warned of dire consequences. Pakistani army is preparing itself. This at a time when there has been an attack with one of the largest bombs in the world that was used by the United States of America and Afghanistan without keeping Pakistan in the loop. And all this around the same time when the National Security Advisor of U.S. is visiting Afghanistan, Pakistan, and later on his return to the United States of America will be in India as well.
All right. Well, Geeta, stay with us. We're switching our focus to more breaking news coming in this hour. United States State Department Secretary Mark Toner has spoken on the mother of all bomb strike in Afghanistan, saying it is in Pak's interest to work with Afghanistan. He added that the U.S. believes that there still are safe havens for terrorists in Pakistan, using which terrorist groups carry out strikes in Afghanistan.
I can't say that this was an immediate outcome of any conversations we had with the Afghan government. I think it's part of our ongoing efforts to take the fight to the Taliban, to take the fight to ISIS affiliates that are operating in that territory, Al-Qaeda affiliates that are operating on Afghan soil, and that's going to continue. You spoke about Pakistan and their role in this. We've been very clear. While we understand that Pakistan has made efforts to confront terrorism and terrorist organizations on its own soil, that there are still what we call safe havens that exist for terrorist groups to operate from and carry strikes out on Afghanistan. That's a problem. Again, it's in Pakistan's interest to work constructively with Afghanistan to address those security concerns.
Well, Geeta Mohan is still with us. Geeta, a big statement coming in from U.S. State Department Secretary Mark Toner there.
That's right. A huge statement coming in from the United States of America, talking about how the entire operation was done without keeping Pakistan in the loop, because the experience that the United States of America also has had in the past has not been very good with Pakistan. Although Pakistan continues to say that they fight terrorism on that side of the border, but it seems like even the allies there or the partners there question the intent of Pakistan, and very clearly exposing Pakistan over here. Mark Toner saying that there are safe havens there, and it's the reason why Pakistan was not kept in the loop. That's the big story that we'll be tracking through the day, of the distrust not just of India, but also of their own partners in the AFPAC region, the United States of America, not keeping Pakistan in the loop.
Indeed. And you know, the fact also is, Geeta, that this is a weird warning to Pakistan, given the fact that they are pointing out that Pakistan also does provide safe haven to terrorists. Pakistan Pakistan's soil is used by terrorists in carrying out strikes elsewhere in the world. Of course, particularly in Afghanistan, as being referred to in this press briefing. But it clearly is a weird warning to Pakistan, given the fact that the US carried out this strike in Afghanistan just because that area was being used for the movement of terrorists.
Well, that's right. And also saying that now there are affiliates that work with the ISIS, which is a very scary development. And all these affiliates, whether they are the Al-Qaeda or the Taliban, if they are in touch with Pak terror networks, then it's a huge scare, not just for India, but also for the United States of America and all other stakeholders, including China, should worry about this growing threat and this growing affiliations between and amongst networks, terror networks. And despite that, Pakistan continues to maintain that they are intent in fighting terror. They haven't shown that in action. It's not translated in the kind of action that has been taken by Pakistani forces, although they've only hit out at those that hurt them, not even looking at those that hurt United States interests in Afghanistan, or for that matter, certainly abet and support those who hurt Indian interests in that region.
Indeed. Well, stay with us, Geeta. We're getting more reactions coming in on this story.
We are so proud of our military, and it was another successful event. We have the greatest military in the world, and they've done a job as usual. So we have given them total authorization, and that's what they're doing. And frankly, that's why they've been so successful lately. If you look at what's happened over the last 8 weeks and compare that really to what's happened over the last 8 years, you'll see there's a tremendous difference, So we have incredible leaders in the military, and we have incredible military, and we are very proud of them. And this was another very, very successful mission.
Around 7 p.m. local time in Afghanistan last night, the United States military used a GBU-43 weapon in Afghanistan. The GBU-43 is a large, powerful, and accurately delivered weapon. We targeted a system of tunnels and caves that ISIS fighters used to move around freely, making it easier for them to target U.S. military advisors and Afghan forces in the area. The United States takes the fight against ISIS very seriously, and in order to defeat the group, we must deny them operational space, which we did. The United States took all precautions necessary to prevent civilian casualties and collateral damage as a result of the operation.
Commodore G.J. Singh, Strategic Affairs Analyst, is joining us live for further perspective on this story. Commodore G.J. Singh, your first comments on this big development taking place there in Afghanistan. America saying they have taken decisive action, which is in continuance of their policy to weed out terror of all forms across all areas, and saying that this was taken particularly because the ISIS was using this area, was using tunnels here to freely move about and carry out their terror activities.
Pratap, at the outset, I must tell you that I must congratulate President Trump, because he is walking the talk. He has mentioned in his election campaign that he will take a very severe action against the ISIS. And this is what he is doing now. This is something which goes to the credit of President Trump. At the same time, I would say that this is going to prove a deterrent to the ISIS, especially the Khorasan, that particular, the group of ISIS which had been operating from the tunnels and caves complex in the Nangarhar province of Afghanistan, which is bordering Pakistan. This had been a safe haven. And before this mob strike, the mother of all bomb strike, I am sure that the Americans must have carried out a proper reconnaissance, a surveillance, calculated the damage, calculated as to what exactly is going to be the repercussions, how much damage it is going to cause. They have, as they are saying, that got credible intelligence that these operators or these operatives, these terrorists were, operating from that area, and therefore they took a decision to strike this area with the mob, with the mother of all bomb strike. It is not a snap decision. It is not a snap conclusion that they will just go there and they will drop a bomb of this magnitude there, which is, as everybody now knows, is 21,000 pounds. So therefore, I would say this is a proclamation. This is a clarion call to the ISIS to watch it now, which has been given by President Trump, because President Trump has given a full authorization to his 4-star generals. And his generals are very experienced people.
Yes.
They have been, engaged in various wars in various parts of the world. And therefore, this particular decision which has been taken at 4-star level. And mind you, I would also like to bring in here their recent strike against Syria in Shariat airport of Syria, where they again gave a very deterrent, response to the Syrians and the Russians that they cannot do whatever they feel like. They cannot use what is called the chemical weapons strike against the innocent civilians,
yes,
against those children.
That's a valid point. That's a valid point you're making, Commodore
people.
GJ, saying that this should not be looked at in isolation, but it should be looked at immediately after what happened in Syria as well. And it does show the United States resolve. It was expected that they would be acting decisively given the rhetoric of President Trump through his campaign on such issues. But I'll just come back to you, sir. We're getting more reactions coming in on this story.
Well, I think there's a couple of different reasons for the decision to turn to what is known colloquially as the mother of all bombs and drop it on that target in eastern Afghanistan. First of all, there was the military strategic reason that you heard Sean Spicer there, the White House press secretary, offering up. Their aim was to try and minimize the threat posed by Islamic State extremists to coalition forces in eastern Afghanistan and to maximize the amount of damage that they did to those Islamic State extremist fighters. So this was, they argue, militarily the sensible thing to do. But it's also absolutely apparent that this would have been authorized by President Donald Trump in his capacity as Commander-in-Chief of U.S. forces, and coming so quickly as it does after President Trump authorized those military strikes on Syria just a week ago. This is evidence that President Trump is making good on his campaign promise to remove restraints that he argues his predecessor in the White House, Barack Obama, placed on the U.S. military in the battle against Islamic State. This is Donald Trump prioritizing that battle and sending a very clear message, not just to the fighters on the ground there in eastern Afghanistan, but to America's coalition partners and to those nations around the world that challenge the United States, that there is a new sheriff in town here in Washington, D.C., and he will not hesitate to let the U.S. military turn to whatever weapons they have in their arsenal in order to try and achieve his stated goal, namely of defeating Islamic extremism wherever and whenever they have an opportunity so to do. So this is very much a political message that is being sent by President Donald Trump as well as a military one.
via this attack, very clear messages being sent by Trump administration that A, there will be no compromise as far as ISI is concerned. Secondly, they also signaling to China and to North Korea that this administration of Trump would stand no nonsense from North Korea either. An equal message is being sent to Pakistan to get after the Haqqani group.
They have been fighting with Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and now ISIS, but all of them are there, for the last so many years, They are still there. They have not been able to defeat. So this bombing, I'm sure, will not help solve the problem.
America, as you know, has its own interests. Earlier it was thought that America would be withdrawing out its forces and therefore leaving space for the Taliban and ISIS and others to come in. But with the dropping of this bomb and firing of the Tomahawk missiles, it shows that America has now changed its strategy. Instead of sending troops on ground, it is going to use these sorts of aerial bombardments.
Well, let's go back to Commodore G.J. Singh, who is still live with us. Commodore G.J. Singh, the United States showing through this development that they mean business in their war against terror, showing in succession after what they did in Syria that they can go to any extent to prove their point, to re-emphasize what President Trump has said in his election speeches before coming into office as well. Do you also believe, sir, that this is a veiled warning to Pakistan, given that the US has reiterated today as well in a press briefing by US State Department Secretary Mark Toner that Pakistan is still using their base for terrorists. Terrorists are freely moving about in certain safe havens in Pakistan.
Yes, it is a subtle message to Pakistan as well that America is not going to tolerate any terrorism which is emanating from their soil. As the defense analyst of the America, which you had just shown, I think he was essentially saying the same thing what I said earlier. There is a new, I want to use this term, they are sending a message to the world that there is a new man, there is a new sheriff in the town in Washington who will not tolerate any terrorist activity or any ISIS-like kind of a thing anywhere in the world, because the earlier President Obama seemed to have paddled very softly with the ISIS, Islamic State. Obama did not use any weapons which were available to him at disposal in the American arsenal, ammunition arsenal. But President Obama, I would say, was also trying to safeguard his Nobel Prize, because he was in his, earlier when he took over as president, he was bestowed upon with Nobel Prize. So he was soft paddling towards almost everything and sending a poor message of America as a great superpower. And now the President Trump has promised that he will make America great again, is walking the talk, is similarly talking on those very on those lines. He's showing the world that he's not going to care for anyone, and he will stand firm against all kinds of terrorism that emanate from any country, whether it is Pakistan or not. Briefly, I must say this is a message to Pakistan, a strong and firm message that if they continue to support these Taliban and going to support these terrorists which are operating from their Nangarhar province, which is bordering their Pakistan western border and eastern border of Afghanistan, they will probably also be dealt with very severely. So to make the long story short, this is a new announcement by the America that they do not fear anything, anywhere on this planet Earth, and they will take a very strong action when it comes to terrorism. And I think this is absolutely a right step in the right direction, because no organization whether it is Islamic State or any terrorist organization, can impose their religious and political will upon any other nation or a group of people, as we see that the ISIS is imposing their will, religious will, their political will upon the rest of the world. And now America has stood once again against all these kinds of ideologies. And I think this is a very good message
Yes.
which is going to the world at this point in time.
But Commodore Jijit Singh, we've heard an
to which
interesting
the world is
reaction
going
come
to.
in from former Afghanistan President Hamid Karzai. He has said that the US is using Afghanistan as a testing ground for their new weapons, given the fact that this was the most powerful non-nuclear bomb which was used for the first time in a battle situation. It was the first time that this was used by America apart from testing. And that's an interesting reaction coming in from Hamid Karzai, a lot being read into it. What do you think of his statement?
Karzai has forgotten that it was America who installed him as President or Prime Minister of Afghanistan. It was because of American administration that he became the President of Afghanistan and he ruled over there. Otherwise, he was nowhere. Now, he is the one who initially invited the Americans to come there. Because, let me make a point here that Americans know, and Karzai also should know, that the Afghanistan forces are maintaining a very fragile security in their country. It's a very fragile. We find every now and then that the terrorist groups, they strike their parliament, they strike even the embassies in Afghanistan, they strike all kinds of targets, civilian targets. They find it very easily accessible. Karzai has forgotten that it is because of America that he became so-called a powerful man in Afghanistan and ruled over Afghanistan. I personally feel this is not a wise statement coming out from Karzai, and Americans will take note of it. When the Afghanistan this President Karzai needed Americans, he invited them. He went to America many times to meet Obama, and even at Bush administration time, he met President Bush quite a number of times. And now when the Americans are taking a very strong and firm action against the complex, as I said earlier, you see, a lot of thinking, lot of calculation must have gone into making the decision. They must have sized up that area that, look, if we drop this bomb, it is going to cause maximum damage to these terrorists, to this Islamic State, to these people. Karzai doesn't seem to be cognizant of this fact. Karzai doesn't seem to grasp this, and Americans will note this, and probably it will not go well with the Americans, the statement of President Karzai.
Indeed, and the fact also is that America has acted decisively because they say that this is an area, Commodore Jijit Singh, that is being used in the movement of terrorists there in those tunnels. Now, America has, of course, conducted a war on terror earlier in this region by sending in soldiers on ground. Those moves were criticized as well by some, that why should the army continue to be in Afghanistan much after their war on terror concluded, much after their war on Iraq also was criticized, and that's why we saw the phasing out, sir, of soldiers on ground in areas like Afghanistan and Iraq. So do you feel this is a new battle that America is fighting against terror by not really sending in their soldiers on ground, but deciding to conduct airstrikes, deciding to drop bombs in their resolve against terror?
You see, this is what they call planing or grounding boots on ground. So Americans do not believe in this. You see, ultimately the aim of any war battle is to subdue the enemy. And by any means, you can use, even what you call ground troops, you can use power, you can use deception, you can use all kinds of weapons what is called overt or covert. The idea is to subdue these people, these terrorists. And the Americans have realized that the terrain in this particular area is very mountainous. It is very, what you call, full of caves and lanes and by-lanes and, very, very complex. It has got tunnels which they have been dug by these terrorists. And mind you, the Pakistani IS and the military has been helping them. They have been enabling them to do this. They have been giving them all what you call military weapons, the training, the equipment, the tactics and all that. This is the ISI. This is the military, the Pakistan military, which is doing that.
Yeah.
And this has become a storehouse. It has become a depot of all the terrorists. So therefore,
no, that's a valid point. That's a valid point you're making, Commodore Jeter Singh. I'm afraid we